right. Cool. So if you guys all have your Fusion open, let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do, I drew up a plan view for my faucet. So I'm going to pull that in. So I'm going to start by inserting a canvas. You can also drop down, insert, and go to canvas here. And then you're going to find insert from my computer. And you're going to need to have saved it beforehand into a PNG or JPEG, whatever. And I think this is me. Yeah, this is me here. So I just did a quick doodle here. I'm going to open that up. I'm going to import that onto, let's just click this face here. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, in my case, when I'm looking at the front, I see my my text that I wrote in is mirrored. So if I just click on this little mirror icon, it'll flip it to the way I was intending it to be. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click OK. And so now I have a canvas in my workspace here. Let me change my display view here real quick. So what I just did there, by the way, I switched from perspective to orthographic. You can design in both for, I recommend toggling between the two often. I had mine in perspective with ortho faces, which means as you orbit around, you get a perspective view, which is what your eyes naturally see, and then orthographic view once you snap directly to a face. You can pick, whatever looks right to you, whatever feels right to you. I might keep mine in the perspective with ortho faces, gets you a better idea of how everything's going to be shaped and how it's going to look in the real world. Okay, so I've got my drawing in here. I'll walk you through real quick how to correctly size it. It's pretty easy. If you drop down canvases and then right-click on your artwork and click on Calibrate, you can click any 2 points on your drawing here and set them to be a set dimension. So in this case, I don't know, my faucet's probably about 8 inches tall. So I'm going to dimension that to be 8 inches. This isn't super necessary for this project here, but good to know in the future. And for sunglasses and everything, having things correctly scaled, super important. Okay, cool. So I've got my drawing in here. I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch. And I'm going to go ahead and create this sketch on this plane here, same plane I put my drawing on, because we're basically just going to trace the side profile of our shape. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to use the Fit Point Spline tool up here. And I'm just going to go ahead and less is more when it comes to the splines. You'll play around with them and get a feel for them, but essentially the longer the gap in between points, the less curvature. And so if I place these guys farther apart like that, and then I place the next ones a little closer together, that's how I can kind of control how tight of a turn or of curvature my shape has. So in this case, I'm going to go here and here. So I've got that spline there. It's a little hard to see. Now you can see it a little better. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make one more for the inside here. And your shapes may be different. You may not need to do splines. You may need to do something else. I tried to find a create a drawing that was somewhat similar to most of your guys's. If yours is just a simple curved arc and it's not a splined arc, you can use your 3-point arc tool. If it's just boxy, you can use your line tool. And you'll have slightly different kind of workflows depending on what it is that you're creating, but I'm trying to cover my bases, give everyone a little bit of something to work with here. So I've got that. I'm going to go ahead real quick. I'm just going to make sure that both of these points are kind of level with each other here in this direction. So if I click on one, hold shift and click on the other one, you'll notice I have both of these points selected. And then I can just click on horizontal, vertical, and it's going to snap them to be perfectly horizontal with each other. And then I just pressed escape to drop that tool. I'm just going to do a simple straight line segment between the two from here to here. And I'm going to do the same from the top. So super basic. This, for starters, I'm going to work off of a super simple extrusion. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you a slightly more complex workflow to give yourself a more intricate shape. So for now, just for this simple shape, I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. And then I can extrude this guy. I pressed E on my keyboard, same thing as clicking up here. And I like to keep it symmetric when I can. Just makes things easier down the line if you need to split something in half or create an offset sketch, whatever. And I'm just going to, hide my, my canvas real quick and create that there. So that would be a super, super basic shape. You could, then come in and chamfer edges if you wanted to. So I just use my chamfer tool under Modify, and I kind of can drag in my chamfer, create something that looks nice. All right, let's say I like that. And then last but not least, I'm just going to make this hollow. So I can use my shell tool. And this lets me click on any face that's going to be the open face. And then I can set the wall thickness like so. So that's super, super basic way to make kind of that shape. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I want mine to be a little bit more intentional with how I've created my drawing. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to undo what I've just did here and go back to when we created this shape initially. Let me see. I'm going to clean up my, my curves here actually a little bit. I could spend copious amounts of time perfecting how these curves flow and make them so that they aesthetically match perfectly, but in this case, it's probably good enough for this drawing, for this, come on, there we go. Okay. I'm just gonna, cool, close enough. All right. So another way that we could do this is instead of extruding this, we can also, let's say that I wanted to take the profile. So I have kind of like a modified trapezoid here, right, with some curved corners. Let's say I kind of wanted to sweep that shape along the length of our faucet. I can totally do that. So what we can do is I've got this base shape to work off of. One tip for everyone is, let's say that I wanted to draw that shape on kind of a plane, but I don't have a good way to put a plane up here. You can use the Surface tab and use the Extrude under this tab to, if I deselect everything and turn off chaining, I can extrude just a single line segment, which I can then use to create a drawing on. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to extrude that like I just did. I'm going to show that first sketch again too. And so this will allow me to create a sketch on that plane there. And so now I can go ahead and make my kind of modified trapezoid. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off visibility of that rectangle because I don't need to see that anymore. And I'm going to draw the profile of my faucet. So let's see, let me breeze through this. what I'm doing right now is I'm just trying to make this guy, I'm using the origin to my advantage, and I'm just placing this all centered over the origin. So I'm creating midpoints on these two lines here, and I've selected both of them. And if I click the horizontal vertical tool, it'll make them equal with each other. And then if I click on one of those and my origin point, it's going to perfectly center these line segments over the middle. And then I'm going to go ahead and connect them like so. And I've got my trapezoid here that's kind of perfectly on the end of this shape here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing for the base. I'm going to make a slightly larger trapezoid because in my case, I want a little bit of taper to it. I want it to get a little wider as it goes. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hide my canvas again. Tell me if I'm going too fast, by the way. I'm trying to give a little bit of everything for everyone. If you need me to slow down, let me know. I'm happy to. I'm also recording this, so you can rewatch it after the fact. So if you remember when I created this sketch here, I had set both of these points here, and as such, this line segment at the bottom to be right along my x-axis, which was to my benefit. That was intentional. If I hadn't done that, I could do the same thing that I did for this and extrude it on our surface tab over and then use that as another plane to create a sketch on. But in this case, I know this is right along that axis, and as such, it's right on this bottom plane. So I can just go ahead and create a sketch on the bottom plane here. And then same kind of thing here. I want my my shape to intersect both of these points of this of the profile of the faucet. And so if I need to bring in any kind of pieces of any sketches, or in this case a reference with this line here, you can use the project command, which is under project include, and it's project. You can press P on your keyboard. That's the default. And that'll let me select anything that's not in my current sketch. And if I click OK, it's going to bring that into my current sketch. It's going to bring it in purple. So that's what anything in purple is that's projected geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create my, my trapezoid here. So I'm actually just starting by placing my line segments outside of where they're going to need to be, just because it's a little easier to work with than having it like hovering over this sketch that's visible behind it. I could also toggle that off, but in this case I'm going to do it this way. And I'm just I'm putting points right on the center points of both of those lines, because I can then use those points to snap to these points, giving me the exact center of this line segment being right on the end of these. So I just use my coincident constraint, and I click on any 2 points, and it kind of connects them, puts them in the same spot. What's important here is really just that the ends, or in this case the sides of these, this shape here, in my case this guy, it intersects the end of these line segments. That's what matters, because we're going to use a sweep or a loft command to kind of interpolate and create the shape between the two, but these edges need to be touching the edges of the shapes that we're kind of connecting via these supporting lines. So I've done that. I've got my shape here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish sketch. And now I have a couple profiles and this shape here. I'm going to use, let's see, I think the loft is going to work best for me. So I'm going to use my loft tool, and I can loft from, I'm going to select both of those, and because they're on the same plane, it's going to read them as a single shape. And I'm going to select these guys here, got a little corner there. And by default, it's just going to go directly from one to the other. But that's why we drew out these, in the case of a loft, what's called rails. So now I can tell it, hey, I'm gonna tell you which rails to take. Alternatively, you can do a centerline rail and just go up the middle. Up to you. You get a little bit more of a control when you do edges, but you know, pish posh, whatever works best for you. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on, I've got my rails selected. I'm going to click on this shape, and then I'm going to click on this one. And you'll notice now it carries that shape up along those rails that we've created here. It's a little funky. I might want to try a sweep, actually. Let's see if that's going to do me any better. Sweep is very similar to a loft, but cool. So that seems to be working a little better. I'm getting a flatter shape across the top. The only thing is I need to connect it in here. And I think there's a way to do that. I honestly can't remember off the top of my head. For now, I'm just going to say that that's good enough for me. What's that?
Extend?
Who said what?
Extend.
Extend. No, that's not it. That's why I started with loft. Okay, we're going to keep it simple for now. I'm just going to leave it at that. You can loft it as well. I've gotten that to work. I don't know why it's not right now. 3D modeling is just like that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn off visibility on those guys. And so now I have kind of a more tapered shape. This is pretty ugly, but like I said, you can always go back and fine tune stuff. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and fill it a couple of the edges. Just going to do like that much there and click OK. And so now I have like the base shape of my faucet here. Okay, so once you've created your shape however you want to, as you kind of saw what both of them are both sweep and loft are capable of, they both have their kind of flaws to them, as you saw. Let's go ahead and let's make our our handle here. So I just drew up, I want this handle kind of floating off the front here with this kind of shape to it. And we want this kind of separated from the body on like a little extendo piece here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an offset plane from this plane here and drag it out until it looks to be right about where I want that to land. So let's go there. And then now I can create a sketch on this plane here. So I'm going to create a sketch. I'm going to pick on that plane. And this will allow me to, if I'm just going to start simple. I'm going to start with this circle. I'm going to go out to here. And then I'm going to finish my sketch. And I can just go ahead and extrude this guy into this. And if I change this to join, I'll have kind of the start of what I'm looking for. It looks like I did it bigger than in my drawing, but that's fine. I'm just going to leave it. You could, actually I'll show you real quick. You can go back if I double click on that sketch and make it a little smaller, drag it a little lower, whatever. You know, reposition it till you're happy with it, right? Let's go ahead and kind of make a separate body for the handle. So in this case, my theory here is that this handle pulls out to turn on the water and then twists to change the temperature. So let's have it like slightly pulled out in our 3D model. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back into that sketch where I created this circle and just create a slightly smaller circle within it. And then I can turn the visibility of it back on and extrude this guy and bring it out just a little bit. And turn that off. And then I can create another sketch on the face of this, and I can go ahead and I can create the shape of my handle. So in this case, I'm going to go, I want it to match this circle here. So we're going to use that project tool again. Under create, we're going to use project. I'm going to select on that outer circle there, and that brings it in like I showed you in purple so that we can use that geometry in the sketch. And we're just going to make our little kind of curved pointer piece up in the top here. So this guy, this shape. I'm going to start by just drawing a center line up the middle here. And if I click on any line and press X, it's going to make it a dashed line. Just keeps everything a little cleaner. And I'm going to put a circle on the top of it, like so. I'm going to make an arc. I'm using a 3-point arc, so it's going to be this guy here. By default, I don't believe it has a keybind. I've set mine to A. If you want to add any keybinds, you can press the 3 dots and change the keyboard shortcut. But I'm just going to go ahead and toggle this guy in. And you notice that little green icon that showed up, and you have this tangent thing that comes up here. I want that. I want a nice smooth flow between them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing between these two bodies, because you'll notice right now they can have kind of a hard edge, which is not what I'm looking for. So I can use my tangent command and click on the two shapes, and it kind of smoothly transitions from this arc to this arc to the circle. And I'm just going to mirror this. I'm going to select it and mirror it over to the other side, like so. And so now I have kind of the shape of my knob here, right? I'm going to finish the sketch. I'm going to extrude all this out another, say 10 millimeters in this case. And now I've got the handle, right? Is everyone following? Is this helpful? It's not specific to anyone in particular's drawings, unfortunately, but I'm trying to use as many tools as I can here. So I've got this. We're going to do our text now, and I had my text kind of curved around the outside. This was one of our design trends, wasn't it? So I'm going to create another sketch on the face of this here. And I'm just going to hide everything else. I'm just going to hide body 2 so that I don't see it. Just keep my workspace clean here. And you've got your text tool down here. So I'm going to use my text tool, and I'm going to place, one piece of text, and I'm going to say hotter, because that's what I had written. And then I'm going to change it to text on path. I'm going to select this path here. I am trying to remember if I can flip. Yeah, no. Yeah, but I'm going to change my spacing. Let's do this. Let me offset this inward so it's not right on the edge. So I'm going to use my offset tool. And I can also press O on my keyboard, and I'm just going to offset inwards a little bit from this shape. And we'll go, looks like it, let's go a little farther than I would think, and I'm going to put the text on the outside of this shape here. So I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to create my text again, change it to text on path, and switch it to the outside, and say hotter. I'm going to change my height to be a little smaller. And That looks good enough for me. You can mess around with it, really perfect everything if you want to. Let's see. And then I'm going to do another one that says colder. Oh, it looks like it doesn't let you use the same path again. So let's double click this to edit, and let's see if I can't just place a bunch of spaces in between them. There we go. That works a charm. You can mess around with it. You can make another line if you wanted to, whatever you need to do. I'm sure that we can also kind of space this a little better if we messed around with spacing a little bit. Fusion's not terribly powerful when it comes to text creation, but this is going to be good enough. I'm just going to change the font, maybe. Let's see.
Do you need the single quotes there?
What's that?
You have to have the single quotes for the text?
Yes. I don't know why they made that now, but for some reason, if you don't, it's going to want to use an expression. It's just, it's going to by default have those quotes for you. As soon as you start typing, it just puts them on the outside. Like if I deleted them, let's just see what's going to happen. It just doesn't let me.
I see, okay. Yeah,
So, but it does that by default for you. So once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to draw up. I had also created a little triangle icon on the top here. I'm just going to do that as well. So let's go here. I'm going to offset again from this shape just so that I have a matching curve. Let's go about there. And then I'm just going to create an arc between the two. Okay, so that's my little indentation for the little arrow on the top. So I'm going to finish my sketch. I'm going to turn on visibility on body 2. And I can just extrude the shapes of this text and this guy, -0 point, I don't know, let's see, what, that's not bad. I can go a little deeper probably. Let's try that.
Why extrude, not emboss?
What's that?
Why extrude, not emboss?
You can do either way. You know, whatever works best for you. This is simple and yeah. So that is my kind of wrapped text. You can wrap it on any sort of shape. Let's go ahead. We're going to add one more detail here. Let me save this first real quick, actually. I'm going to create kind of a pattern that almost gives it kind of the fins that we were talking about. So one way to do that would be, let me show you in my sketch here, just having kind of these oval, I got a little lazy as you can tell, some kind of oval cutouts in the shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and keep this somewhat simple here. Let's see if I can do so. I'm going to go back to the first sketch that I had created all this geometry in. I'm just going to double click on it. I'm just going to draw in a simple little box here. And let's go ahead and I'm going to shrink mine down a little bit. This is going to be the basis of the shape that we're going to use to cut all the way down around the back side of this. You would probably want to mess around with it a little more, but it's fine for what I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn the visibility of sketch 1 back on and extrude the shape. I'm going to do it symmetrically. But rather than cut, and actually this is wider than I was originally thinking, so I'm going to go back and fix that in a second. But rather than cut, I'm going to change this to new body, because what we're going to do is we're going to pattern a bunch of these bodies along the back ridge of our faucet. Did you have a question or are you just stretching? Cool. So let me go a little bit wider. Let's do maybe 8 mil. And then I'm just going to go back and adjust, oops, wrong one. Adjust this to be a little narrower. Okay, so I've got this shape. I don't want it to be just a straight up box. I want it to be a little more interesting. So part of the benefit to, rather than just cutting this directly and instead just making it a separate body, is I can make some changes to it. So if I wanted to, fill at these corners and make all of these cuts slightly rounded, I can do that. And then let's say that I also wanted them to be maybe slightly chamfered. I can change this from equal distance to 2 distance, and I can make it, let's see. I can make it kind of taper inward as it goes. So maybe 0.5, yeah, like so. And then I can turn this visibility back on here. And so that is going to, once I cut that shape out of this shape, gives me a little bit of taper to it. You can mess around with it however you want, whatever you think would look interesting. But the important thing now is that we're going to pattern this along that back spine of this faucet here. So I'm going to turn visibility of the faucet off briefly. I'm going to drop down pattern. I'm going to do pattern on path. This will let me select any shape and then turn on the visibility of that first sketch and select, it looks like it's going to want to chain select everything. That's fine. And then you can just drag out the extent that you want it to go, however far back you want. And then you can just start taking up the quantity until, let's see, like 30. No, we're going to want more than that. And it's going to slow things down a little bit. Oh, and the other thing I forgot to switch is I want to change my orientation from identical to path direction if I want like a consistent shape. So if you notice the change here, let me zoom in. If I left it identical, see how they're all rotated the same direction as the first one? I want them to follow the contour. And I'm going to click OK. You can do this on a simple flat shape too. You don't even need to do the on contour thing. You can just do a standard pattern and drag it out to however many you want, but I wanted to show you this because it's pretty cool. I'm going to turn visibility of the faucet back on, and I'm going to turn off visibility of that sketch, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to use all of these bodies to cut those little chunks out of this shape here. So I'm going to go to combine. I don't know why they titled it combine because you can also subtract, so we're going to change it to cut. Our target body is the one that we want to get cut. And then our tool bodies, I'm just going to go ahead and rather than selecting each of these individually, I'm just going to click on the top one, scroll all the way down to the bottom, hold shift on my keyboard and click the bottom one. And it's going to load for a sec. And then I am going to click OK. And now I have kind of this pattern cut out of the top edge of my faucet here. And then now I can go through and honestly, if I were to shell this, I would probably want to do that before I'd done that intricate detail, just because with that many different shapes, doing the shell, which is making it hollow, would probably make it lag pretty good. I mean, it's already struggling with this handle here. It may not even work. Let's see. Yeah, it's not gonna work. If I wanted to shell this, what I could do is I could go like after the fact, let's say, oh, like I did all this, that's great, but I want this to be hollow. I can go back, I can click on this shape here to find where I'd created it and go until right before it and then shell this shape out. So I'm gonna want this to be maybe like 6 millimeters. And then I can go skip ahead little bits at a time, and this should be okay. Let's find out if it's gonna work for me. It's gonna recalculate everything. It's gonna take a sec. Yeah, it looks like it worked great. So now I have like the hollow opening. I've got my pattern along the top, these kind of fin shapes. And am I missing any details at all?
I guess if you were to break the form, if you wanted like one finish on.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. So let's say that I wanted the tip of this to be a slightly different material, right? Let's say I wanted it to break right after this last kind of slot here. I could just create an offset plane from this body here, or this, this face here, and draw up to about where I want to break it in 2 pieces. And then I can just go ahead and I can use my split body tool. Click on this body, and then I'm going to click on the plane, and then I can click OK. I'm going to hide that plane there. And so now this is reading as 2 separate bodies. One thing that I would recommend doing, depending on your aesthetic choice here, is I'm just going to click on any surface of this and press V for visibility to toggle it off. And I'm going to go ahead and just give this guy a slight chamfer. And I'm going to change this actually to my equal distance again. That's way too much. I'm going to go 1 mil there. I'm going to turn visibility of this guy back on, and I'm going to chamfer it another millimeter. And kind of gives you that separation on the front there. And then when I go, I'm going to save real quick. When I go to my render tab, I can set that to be, if we wanted the rest of it to be like a rough steel, and then the little nozzle to be aluminum. And let's just say bead blasted aluminum. Now I can differentiate each of those shapes. You can also, if you want to, like if I want to make this a little more visible, I can change this from bodies components to faces. If I just look up paint, let me find one that I like here. I'll just use the powder coat. I can place these on individual bodies, and then I can also, if I like the texture of one, but it doesn't come in a color I like, you can always just, in this case I want to duplicate it because I want a second one that has different colors. And I can right click and edit, and I can just change the colors of it. And so now that's going to be red, and I can drag that guy onto these faces here. So I can go ahead and just, if I select each of these, just drag that on, and then I can duplicate this, edit, and change it to blue, and select each of these. Not sure why it's split that in 2, but whatever. And just change those. Looks like I'm missing this corner here. And so now I have, like, the inset text has some color to it, makes it easier to read. I got a couple different materials in here. And let's just hit render real quick and see how it looks. It looks pretty good to me. Any questions at all? Anything that you're like, wait, how did you do that? I can happy to walk back and show you where I did something. No?
I think maybe saving and walking around would be good too.
What's up?
My only question is, when you extruded the handle,
Mhm.
you didn't, like trim any of the lines that went into the face to the,
Yeah.
is there any disadvantage to that in the way your solid is constructed now? I don't see any of those lines on this drawing, but.
So okay, I looks like this
Yeah, I
got
see it
sliced
looks
with
like-
this,
look like, yeah, some other things are.
but when I created, let me go back here. So this guy here, not having these sliced,
Right.
not the end of the world. For more complex models, especially like if you get really into what's called parametric modeling and you want to create models where you just change a couple variables and it updates the model for you, that's when it makes a little more sense to do so. On a one-off model like this, where I'm not parametrically changing the size of the knob, no biggie. It's going to automatically, in this case, like faces, like this guy and this guy, if they're touching directly, if I select both of them for my extrusion, it just treats it all as one shape. Yeah. Any other questions? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Cool. And what did you start to say?
I was just gonna say, maybe you could walk around
Yeah.
if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and walk around. Just ask me any questions. That's what I'm here for.
Don't forget to end your, yeah.
How do we go back to watch the video that you recorded?
We'll put it on Canvas. Let me stop that. That's